is to order at 4 p.m. today, February 17th, 2021. You just heard the notice that the meeting is being recorded by the host, and I assume there are others recording, including our iVertures reporter, Jack Garino. I need to read the waiver first. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town of Adams Board of Health is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of meetings of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided in the order. Attending remotely are members Dr. Peter Hoyt, Dr. Laura Grandchamp, and myself, Dr. David Rhodes. We have posted today's agenda, which included the call-in information for today's meeting. I have also included my cell phone number on the agenda in case someone cannot get in via the published way. Despite our best efforts, if we are not able to provide for real-time access for the public to participate in today's meeting, a recording of this meeting will be made available. And I should make a note, we need to press forward on that, because I think available recordings are not available. We are participating remotely. All votes will be taken by roll call. And I see here, along with our administrative assistant, Pam Jerry, we also have Town Attorney St. John and Code Enforcement Mark Blaisdell, as well as Mr. John Sharon from Original Seed, and Catherine Foster from the public. So grab my agenda here. I think I should ask at this point if there is any public comment before we move into the agenda items.
I do have something that I wanted to discuss briefly.
Okay.
On your notices, instead of saying things like any pertinent issues, ? Can it be more specific?
I'm not sure exactly what the question is.
On the agendas, and it probably goes out like this to the board so that they can add input before it gets posted. But when it gets posted, when it says any pertinent issues ?
That is basically
or any ? That really doesn't say anything.
it in the sense that often we do get mail that we need at least to note. These are not, to me, items that will be policy changing. I do have under code enforcement just question, just for me to remember to open the floor for Officer Blaisdell to say anything he might need to say from his angle.
But I don't think we can do that unless it's on the agenda.
If he has something that he needs to say that's important to say, then it is important for him to say it, and we will not take any action. We will schedule a special meeting if necessary. Otherwise, add it to the agenda for the next meeting under a full subject. Does that make sense? And I guess I would.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree with it. I don't think that you should have anything like that, something vague with a ? As an agenda item. I just don't think that that's appropriate.
May I ask Attorney St. John to weigh in here, because I have been trying to formalize our agenda.
Well, the agenda itself should contain items that you reasonably expect to be discussed within 48 hours of today's meeting. So as far as Mr. Blaisdell is concerned, on the agenda, I see a number of items that are going to be discussed that are arising out of emails So you knew about that and you put that on the agenda, which is good. If Mr. Blaisdell has other items, and I think Ms. Foster is raising a legitimate concern, that if he has items that are to be discussed without posting them on the agenda, and you knew about it, or somebody knew about it within 48 hours, or outside 48 hours, then it should have been posted. Now, in a situation where it's an emergency and it couldn't have been posted, but it's an emergency matter, the open meeting law does excuse the posting requirement under those circumstances. If it's something that should have been placed on the agenda and because it was known outside the 48-hour period, it really is a matter that should not be discussed or deliberated upon. It should be moved to another meeting where it can be done.
So what do you recommend that I remove that line, any pertinent issues? And
Well, I think there's a danger in doing that. I mean, like, for example, for the good of the order is another item that I've always questioned, because sometimes people can bring up things under that as well that are things that probably should have been on the agenda that require board deliberation. And I think what you have here with pertinent issues, as I said, I think her concern, Ms. Foster's concern, is a legitimate concern that it would give rise to a potential open meeting violation.
And I think the line itself, for instance, review mail, that can stay there. The line code enforcement officer can stay there, just like public comment is there, but just not the vague, any pertinent issues question mark. That's the only part I've got an issue with, is that there's some vague question about whether maybe there's something.
okay, well, let me take that under advisement, and with Attorney St. John's advice, maybe I can just remove that line. We still have
A place marker. Yeah, you can keep it
a
as
place marker.
Yeah.
And-
I have one other thing. Can you guys try to, I know it's hard and I know I've asked before, but can you try to keep up with the minutes as best as you can?
It's a long story. We have made appeals, and they individuals who can pass that information along are kind of maxed out on other areas. We do approve the minutes and publish them, but as far as the meeting recording, I absolutely agree with you. It would be good if we kept up with that. We had a YouTube channel started, and it now lies fallow. So given your request, I will push that again and say that we have been asked.
I like the idea of the YouTube channel, but I was actually talking about the written minutes. I'm not asking you to do extra work by having a YouTube channel and uploading video. It's nice for people to be able to see it, but that's not really what I was asking for.
Okay, well, we will approve last month's meeting. And
David, can I jump in for a second?
Go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Kathy, that once the minutes are approved by us, the board, they are available upon request through the clerk's office. So I think that's the method in getting those. I don't think posting them on our website or any other venue is the official way to post our meetings. I think they're posted within the clerk's office and they're available upon request.
I think the clerk gets them right up on the website, but the thing is if you're not approving them and getting them to the clerk, then it really doesn't matter that I can get them from her maybe a day earlier. If it's taking you a month and a half and 4 meetings, to approve minutes, that's
excuse me, but our approval rate is actually within open meeting law bounds. But
We're approving last month's meeting.
And so that's in the first place. In the second place, you are permitted by law to request after 10 days for draft minutes. And we, I guess at this point, it would be Administrative Assistant Jerry would be required to provide you. And I have myself taken advantage of that for meeting minutes that had not been posted. But if you write to the office or call the office 10 days after a meeting, you may get the draft minutes, just being aware that they are draft, they're not approved.
Well, if I need one quickly, I'll remember, but I don't think you really want me to have to do that.
No, certainly not. But we don't meet, and we meet like once a month, and so we will approve. So if there's no
Yeah,
further,
that's my point, is that we are now approving last meeting's minutes, so we aren't behind at all. It was, last meeting was last month, and that's the minutes that we're approving. So
So
we're not,
you've already approved January 13th and 27th?
January 27th was an executive session, and so they will be approved internally, and I will bring that up momentarily because the process that we started was not appropriate, and I want to clarify that publicly what we will be doing.
Okay, January 13th.
So may we move on to this agenda item, please?
I don't know, because all I'm hearing is that you're not doing anything wrong and you really can't do it any better. But I don't see January 13th minutes.
Would you like me to send you? I will send you the open meeting law,
No, I know
and
that.
you can read right in there what what the parameters are.
Well, let's ask Mr. St. John.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Oh, I think the minutes have to be approved within three meetings of the particular meeting in question, or by 90 days. It's something, very, very generous.
3 meetings, 30 days, whichever's longer.
I think it is 3 meetings or 30 days. And you have a situation here where the minutes that you're seeking to approve are minutes from your last meeting. So you're well within the open meeting law guidelines as far as approval of those minutes.
What about the January 13th minutes?
That's what we're going to approve.
That's what I'm talking about, is the January 13th minutes.
That wasn't the last meeting. The last meeting was February 10th.
That meeting was terminated, and I don't know if we need to have minutes for that, because it is essentially as if it did not happen.
But it did. You opened the meeting, then you realized at some point shortly after starting it, it wasn't being recorded, and you chose to end it, but it still was a meeting, wasn't it?
Okay, so you asked for a point of order. I'm going to close public comment at this point, but again, take that under advisement and just ask Attorney St. John if we do need to specifically note that the meeting went for some period and then had to be terminated due to a recording glitch.
Yes, you have to make that notation. You open the meeting and then whatever happened, happened, and then you have to close the meeting, and that's the end of it.
Okay, I will ask Administrative Assistant Jerry to create minutes insofar as the meeting occurred and what happened, and we will take them up at our next meeting.
And I hate to keep getting stuck on this, but January 13th, are
So,
there minutes for that? Or is
okay,
that
moving on. As I said, I'm closing public comment now, and I'm moving on. The next order on the agenda is approval of the minutes from January 13th. Do we have any changes we would like to make to that board, or Officer Still,
Motion to approve January 13th minutes.
I have a second.
Second,
Further discussion?
So
No.
I do have a question.
Yes, go for it.
So if the last meeting, February 10th, was valid, there would have already been an approval of those minutes?
Are we back onto the open?
No, it makes sense to reapprove. Yes, yeah, we did take a vote. Laura Grandchamp was not with us at that meeting, but we did take a vote. But given that we are repeating that meeting, it's prudent for us to formally take it up as approval tonight, which is what we're doing. But
Okay.
but thank you for your question.
All right, and then also, we went out of order tonight with regard to public comment and approval of the minutes.
This is indeed correct. I had.
All right.
scribbled
And then I would just like to weigh in on Ms. Foster's comments about the agenda item, code enforcement officer, any pertinent issues, question mark?
Are we to a
So,
point where the public can now speak? Because
No,
you
no,
closed public
No,
comment.
no, I'm just allowing Officer Blaisdell to make an explanation, and I would please ask for you to be silent.
And then I'll have the chance after.
We'll see. So, Mark, you were going to make a point about,
yes, so you had commented that you're going to take under advisement that phrase, and then I would also just like for the public record that never have I ever brought up a matter under those circumstances. I have brought up matters that weren't on the agenda that I recommend to be put on the agenda for the following meeting and then appropriately discussed and voted on. So when you take that under advisement, just consider
Is any of this pertinent to the motion that's on the table?
it is not.
it is not. So we will discuss this further because I just want to clarify some things, but let's take the vote, call for a vote. Laura,
yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Dave, yes. The motion to approve the minutes of January 13th passes unanimously. And now moving on, it is on the agenda item, code enforcement, any pertinent issues. I will amend that going forward. The reason it is on the agenda is that before COVID, there was a monthly report, and we totally understand that those monthly reports are not that, it's difficult to do monthly reports given all that's on your plate at this point. So I will remove that question, but I will leave code enforcement officer there because it is a traditional agenda item. So moving on to old business. First item is the COVID update. Much has been going on. As you know, we are now tomorrow, I think, the second cohort of phase 2 is now eligible to make appointments. Berkshire County apparently is slightly ahead of the rest of the state in our efficiency of immunizing people. Good news is that the number of cases is declining again. I think the last 2 days was, yesterday was actually under 1,000, and the last 2 days there were fewer than 50 deaths, which that's still a lot. It's better than closer to 100. And we are working to rectify the situation with positive residences for our first responders. And maybe at this point, maybe I could ask Mark if he had any thoughts here, any further input from his contacts in the first responder community.
I have not had any communication with those folks.
So Nancy is going to try to get me addresses. I will begin to put together an address list so that I can circulate it. But for the time being, I'm still recommending that all addresses should be considered potentially positive. And even after I send out a list of the first responders, I will continue to recommend that. Anything else on the COVID-19 front?
David, I noticed the last communication, although it was a while ago, with the addresses that it was going to the old police chief. Do you have the new police chief's contact info?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I think
Okay.
yeah.
I know it was a while ago, the last one, so I just wanted to make sure that was updated.
Yeah, yes, good. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next old business item, the lead in St. Stan's. I have discussed the issue with Superintendent John Barrett, and he said he has taken no further action than having contacted St. Stan's and giving them the recommendations about keeping their lines flushed, that it's lead in water it's everywhere, and it gets worse if the water sits. So it's always important for schools, especially old schools with lead service lines, to flush even after weekends, and particularly after long vacations and so forth. He did say that the EPA has come out with a new set of regulations on lead and copper. They are right now pending because they were promulgated under the Trump administration, and Biden has put a hold on movement of any of the regulations pending further review. But they basically will get probably released sometime this year, and the state will follow. Essentially, they increase the reporting requirements and the remediation requirements and the testing frequencies, so that. But John is up on top of that, and will continue to monitor our water because we do have a very good supply, and so that's that on that.
David, did he mention when the next round of testing was going to be for that area?
I think it's going to depend on the EPA and state, and if I'm not mistaken, they don't have to test even yearly, and the lead level wasn't above the threshold in any case. It's John has a threshold of not detectable.
Right.
And anything is above that, he gets upset. And so we are it's a great benefit to have him as our water superintendent, because he doesn't like any contamination. And
Right. So we're probably looking at later this year at the earliest then.
maybe even next year. Yes.
Okay.
But anyhow, they have the remediation information, particularly the flushing is
Right.
the most,
Right.
so, but anyhow,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
So Mark, has our buddy at Mount Royal Inn gotten his permits and so forth in order?
He has, he still has to finish the certificate of occupancy or certificate of inspection with the building commissioner. He has met his requirements with the Board of Selectmen, but they also can't actually hand over the license until he has his certificate of inspection from the building commissioner. So my understanding, speaking with the building commissioner, is that there's a language barrier that's preventing completion of that. So if we could table this until the next meeting?
Oh, okay, but there has been movement, which sounds positive.
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. So we will ask again next meeting. Moving on to new business, I have the annual report. I did, procrastinator that I am, I did send it out Monday night. And so you both had a chance to look at it, and I was wondering if either of you had any comments or additions, subtractions, whatever. Before I ask, I did send the passage on the quarry landfill to Sharon Burke and her colleagues at SMI, and she said it looked fine with one change. I had filled the quote big hole, and she requested that I change that to the previous quarry site, and so I will do that. Otherwise, I will take your suggestions under and incorporate them for a final approval next meeting. That would still give us time. Or,
On first read through, I think it looked good. I didn't have any specific changes. I'll read it through in a little bit more detail and email you any edits. Is that acceptable?
I think that would be fine. Is that right, Attorney St. John? If I incorporate his, and then we would.
We would discuss it and vote at the next meeting, right?
Right, but specifically saying that you requested this change, that change, I would not, it would be basically a tracked document.
There's a bit of a problem with doing it like that because you're deliberating over the content of something without doing it in an open meeting. So I
Okay.
caution you about doing that. If you make edits, you ought to be doing it during an open meeting.
All right, well,
Okay, I'll bring
Make your
the
edits.
edits to next meeting then.
Yeah, I will need to do the same because of my work schedule. I really just skimmed it, but I thought my first reading was good as well. Nothing jumped out.
all right, but I also noted something I missed, so I will have my own edit. So to be continued. Thank you.
So I have a question, Attorney
Yes.
St. John. With regard to me providing numbers for that report, can I do that? Can I provide the numbers for the draft report that is going to be discussed by the board at the next meeting?
Mark, my preference is that you do it during an open meeting, only because it could stir discussion, which, if it does happen through the use of emails, would constitute a violation of the open meeting law. So if you could just bring it to the open meeting that you have, that would be the best route to take.
May I push back a little bit, because I feel like I could confer with Officer Blaisdell. Whatever I'm asking for, number one, is required by the budget actually is required by town bylaw. And secondly, it should all be publicly available information, and I am just trying to make sure that we do. Does that make sense?
Well, my point, Mr. Rhodes, Dr. Rhodes, is that if Mark disseminates a document to the entire board with the numbers, much like the editing that's going on, that it would create an issue where there's deliberation taking place. If Mark provided you and only you with that information and you brought it to the meeting, I don't have an issue with that. It's the idea of including the entire board that's the problem.
Right, that's exactly what I'm, yeah, just if I have questions, it would just be between Mark and me. And we would bring, yes, so thank you.
That sounds fine.
Yeah, okay, good. We will talk, Mark and Pam. So moving on, here's the big one. Original Seed Cigar and Lounge. Tracy and John Sharon have requested that we answer a few questions regarding permitting of their establishment. And so I think, I'm not sure whether Mark should start or the Sharons should start. May I ask Mark what he recommends on this score?
I would suggest that the Sharons speak first since they asked to come before the board.
Okay, thank you. So let's go. Is it John or Tracy or both of you?
We're both here.
Good. Okay, so we've all read over the 7-page document you sent, not much of which, of course, was state code and so forth. And so maybe you could give us a brief background and question.
Absolutely. So we met with the town when we first started the business venture to see if there was anything prohibiting us from opening this business, or what we needed to do to go forward. We were basically told that the town welcomed us with open arms, and that if we obtained proper permitting, we would be good to go. So we continued to pursue everything we needed to pursue over months, such as obtaining variances to use the building properly, obtaining our tobacco license, everything that was required. And then we were notified when Mark took over in November that some of our paperwork was out of order. There were some things missing that we needed to get in. So we obliged with all of that. And through trying to obtain the cigar bar permit, which was asked of us from the town, we were notified 2 different times that we did not qualify due to our business model, that we could receive a smoke shop, which is basically their, I guess, verbiage, slang term for the 21 plus adult only tobacco establishment. And that is what we were always trying to operate under. And somewhere along the line, there was confusion. So now that we have been told we cannot obtain the cigar bar permit, but we do already have the 21 plus license, we are just seeking the town's permission to operate with this license only, which does not break any Massachusetts regulations. However, we were notified, I believe, at the 2019 meeting that there's kind of a larger issue. And that's that in 2014, Adams imposed some regulations that went above the Massachusetts regulations, stating that, in fact, you cannot smoke inside, even with the cigar bar permit or the 21 plus adult only entertainment tobacco license. So one, we are seeking to find out why this hasn't already been changed, because this prevents our entire business from operating, which is quite concerning since we came to the town to make sure this wouldn't happen. And then after making sure that those 2014 regulations are changed, which I do believe everybody is on board and willing to do. We do not feel like, you guys are preventing us from doing this or trying to stop us in any way. We feel like it was just an oversight that needs to be taken care of. And just, we need to close on our SBA funding, and they've already extended us 6 months because they will not fund us if we are not allowed to open the lounge. So we just need clarification that the regulations set forth in 2014 will be taken care of, and that we can operate going forward with the current license that we have with the business model that we've set up.
Okay, so from my understanding, there's actually no state code on smoke shop. That is something that Department of Revenue just said to you, and there aren't regulation. I mean, there's smoke shop is not a thing in Massachusetts.
Correct. I believe that they use that as like a slang term for 21 plus tobacco adult only. I believe at one point, like, it was just known as smoke shop, and internally because I did look for any use of that verbiage, smoke shop. But it's basically the town allowing you to smoke inside, just the 21 and plus adult only licenses that Adam has to give out.
Right, so that, but it would fall under the retail tobacco sales permit, from my understanding.
I believe we'd have to check with code enforcement officer, but I believe that the license that we have has the correct verbiage on it that states 21 plus adult only tobacco license, and that does fall under the regulations that allow smoking indoors.
Correct, and then the other question then is other aspects of your business model, having catered events with food being served.
So this is
this is one of the
something
things.
that is, if you have a cigar bar permit, you cannot have outside food because you operate as a restaurant. Some food would be served there, so you can't have somebody bring it inside. Our event with catering would be if a tobacco representative came out to meet with people and ask questions. We might have some small hors d'oeuvres for the people that attend. If somebody rents the space for a private bachelor party, we would have a catered dinner option for them. It's not operating in the same manner that they count as a restaurant, where we would make the food here, and that's why they don't want it brought in from the outside.
So no food would be prepared at Original Seed.
Correct. No food would be prepared here other than coffee and bag snacks, pretzels, chips, juice, just quick and easy things. Sometimes when people smoke cigars, they get lightheaded and need a bite to eat. So just a quick, chip, snack, juice, coffee, prepackaged items.
And so for an establishment to have a catered event, I don't know exactly what the permitting structure for that, if you're opening up like, did you want to say something, Mark?
Yes. So as far as the food aspect introduced into this establishment, the Sharons do have a full food service establishment permit issued from 590. So they would be allowed to prepare a full meal. The only restriction being whatever activity they have there would be restricted to persons who are 21 and older. So the food in some respects will merge with the tobacco permit. But I think the Sharons would have those situations well under control so as not to jeopardize their permit or their state license. The only thing that is inhibiting this establishment from operating fully according to its business model is the 2014 regulation entitled Regulations Prohibiting Smoking in Workplaces and Public Places.
Right.
So if we could put on the agenda for the next meeting to amend or modify that particular regulation, to take out that language that prohibits the smoking within the smoking lounges or the smoking bars and retail smoke shops, that'll be sufficient for the Sharon's needs.
So the other question I had is if they have a full 590 food permit, I mean, what are the no smoking regulations with regard? I mean, and let me just go back, this whole process, I was looking at Original Seed as a cigar bar. But now the business model has shifted.
It has, but if we were to modify our local regulation that prohibits the smoking inside smoking bars, this has been conversation now for more than a year about this particular 2014 regulation. I think that, in all fairness to the Sharons or anyone else who might want to open a similar establishment, we need to act on this. As the Sharons pointed out, and I'm emphasizing, I'm agreeing with, that we've had discussions about this 2014 regulation now for more than a year.
Didn't we?
Yeah.
Got new regulations last year, and wouldn't that negate previous tobacco regulations?
No,
Yeah, that was-
unfortunately- I'm sorry.
No.
Go ahead, Dr.
I thought that's why we added the last line in section A, that
Right,
this
'cause I-
regulation will replace any and all existing tobacco regulations previously approved by Adams Board of Health. Does that not negate 2014?
Right, and I
Supersede
remember
it?
having this discussion. I think then that's why we added it. To my recollection.
And so that last statement supersedes, was it tobacco sales regulation? I mean, what's that? What was it, the actual language? You have it handy?
Yeah, so the last part of section A is, this regulation will replace any and all existing tobacco regulations previously approved by the Adams Board of Health. Is that not sufficient?
Well, that's comprehensive, and so yeah, the question is whether people can smoke in town hall now, because was the 2014. Now, I think the state law says you can, but yeah. I wasn't sure that sentence actually applied to the indoor smoking regulations that was passed in 2014. And so to me, it just raises the question whether we have to amend that or take some other measure.
So, David, I have a question as well. I'm looking at our new regulations, and I'm looking at the definition of adult-only retail. And it says basically an establishment that does not sell food or alcohol.
Yeah, see, this is yeah, my
And
next.
I think this was why we were discussing the cigar bar option because
I think also, yeah, so that I did notice that as well. And I think our adult only retail tobacco store, the definition we may need to talk about, do we need to adopt the definition on the statutes, which is actually labeled retail tobacco store, and use their definition instead?
Well, if I can just chime in, Tracy from Original Seed, the state regulated, or the state definition uses the sentence in which the sale of other products is merely incidental. So being like we are, a large portion of our business is not going to be from food, and we are not selling alcohol. So it is incidental that somebody might get a 99-cent bag of chips or $1 bottle of water with their $30 to $200 sale of tobacco. In my opinion, that would mean incidental. So I don't know, like Laura said, if it's a definition thing.
Can I add something?
Please.
All right, so again, when the Original Seed has any customers, it's only persons who are 21 and older. When they have an event, it's with persons 21 and older, and they can clarify this next aspect is whether or not these will be by invitation or invitation to the public. But in essence, I would say they would fall under the category such as a private club that does have a smoking room, and they do sell alcohol, they do sell food. So I don't think, so I guess it would be more appropriate to further define our regulations, to incorporate businesses such as the Sharons, because our regulation does allow for other businesses of that type.
And so basically we would be crafting a waiver or, but as I worry, I want to make sure that it's kind of a tight waiver. And I think I'm a little bit reluctant right now just to, strike a line in a previous regulation. Unless I have fuller information on what the business model is and what we're actually looking at. What are we talking about? People leaving smoking and so on. I mean, what are going to be the regulations regarding the behavior?
The behavior of the patrons or the attendees?
Yes.
Their permission to smoke inside would be contingent upon their age of 21 and older. The Sharons already stated that as a normal activity, someone might order a food item or a beverage to consume along with their consumption of tobacco. I don't see that as operating a restaurant. So two things need to happen, is at the next meeting, revisit the 2014 regulation pertaining to workplaces and, and then consider making an edit to our 2020 tobacco sales regulation.
So it sounds like a fair amount of effort, because we would be kind of writing uh, a set of conditions that like would apply to a cigar bar. There are like 5 or 6 conditions there that have to be fulfilled, which is obviously why Original C did not qualify. And so if we are going to call it a smoke shop, then we should have a similar set of regulations. Does that make sense?
If I can just chime in for a second, the regulations by the state, basically, if you just forget the word smoke shop that was used in the emails from the state and just replace it with the 21 plus adult only entertainment that we have, there's no regulations pertaining to smoking inside other than that we have to exhibit certain signage on the outside of our building so that people know they cannot come in if they're not 21. They cannot buy tobacco for anyone who isn't 21, that there is smoking, so that you will get secondhand smoke. And then the common signs, that cigars are not a safe alternative to cigarettes, are licensing and opportunities to quit smoking. So those, basically the state allows our business model with only those regulations. And we are asking that the town of Adams also allow what the state allows by striking the 2014 regulations.
Yeah, I understand.
So I also should comment, and maybe Attorney St. John can clarify, is that if you pursue this in a waiver form, that could open the door to another business of a similar type that we would have to honor the same conditions. But as we know, many business models, there are very few business models that are identical to one another, so you're always going to have a variation. I think it would be better for us to amend our 2020 regulations to include language for establishments like the Sharon's and like Smoky Joe's in Springfield. So there are many examples in the Commonwealth of businesses that don't fall into the category of a smoking bar, but are retail tobacco establishments for 21 and older. And I think that the Sharon's business model will be a good thing for the town. And I think that, again, at the next meeting, we should consider make an amendment to the 2014 workplace regulation, as well as our 2020 tobacco sales regulation.
So 2 things. I think I would like to see some of the regulations that would pertain to an establishment like Smoky Joe's. What did Springfield do to allow Smoky Joe's, and what is their business model? What are their constraints? And then the second, I'm a little bit reluctant to amend either of these regulations without a full public hearing.
Oh, absolutely. And I did receive some information from Attorney Wilson from the Massachusetts Municipal Association, and so I'm still doing some legwork on getting that information. But I thought that it would be a good idea for us to at least put this on the agenda for discussion at our next meeting, and then I can report to the board my findings as far as the language that you're looking for.
Right, that would be correct. And I think a fuller, I mean, I still have the original seed proposal. I don't think I don't know if I've seen anything since. Maybe there was one interim one.
David, I'd like to just chime in. I'm going to be signing off in about 5 minutes, but there's been a suggestion raised by Ms. Grandchamp, and I think Mr. Hoyt also mentioned the same thing, is that the 2020 regulations may have superseded the 2014 regulations. So amending a regulation that's already been superseded might be a futile effort. So I think that's got to be looked into, because if that's the case, then you're dealing with only the 2020 regulations. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, thank you.
And so who's going to make that determination?
I'm going to take a look at both regulations, Mark.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Okay, so we put,
Tracy, just chiming in, before we move on, so, is someone gonna get back to us, because our SBA funding is, they will not move forward with this, and they need to know now whether another 6-month extension needs to happen. So I need to report to them whether this is a non-issue because the 2020 regulation superseded and we're A-okay to move forward, or we have to wait. I don't know what I feel like we're not getting any resolution to this, and time keeps going by and our time is running out. And I feel like we've done our due diligence with the town, so I just need to know when we're gonna know.
right, and I do appreciate your anxiety, but I do, I think up until last fall, I was thinking cigar lounge or cigar bar. And now that goalpost has moved. And so I believe for us to responsibly move forward, we need, we need to look at this in detail from the new lens that we are presented with here. So, if even if we discuss this next meeting, we would then have to have a public hearing. We could theoretically schedule that later in March. And so as soon as we would get this done is like a month and a half. So, and that's just being optimistic. And so anyone else have any more thoughts on providing guidance in terms of timing for original seed?
I guess that if Attorney St. John's going to look to see if the new regulations are what's in place, then does that have to really come back to us before the Sharons are notified, or can Attorney St. John just notify them of what that decision is, I guess?
I could do that.
And that would save them some time that they're asking for.
I appreciate that suggestion, Peter.
All right, so we shall, with these suggestions, strategies, move on and put this item on the agenda for decision-making next meeting with the additional information. So thank you.
Dave, would you mind asking Pam, or could I ask Pam to send me the 2014 and 2020 regulations? Just scan them or send them via email to me.
I can do that as soon as the meeting's over. So yeah, I'll do that.
All right, thank you very much.
Sure. Okay. So, moving on to coordinating vaccine with senior low-income subsidized housing. Mark had asked that to be put on the agenda. I think there has been some movement in that area statewide. There was a lot of discussion about it yesterday at the DPH call. Maybe Mark could let us know if there is some role we can play or what's being done otherwise.
Right, so I haven't spoken with our public health nurse, but I have spoken with a couple of the housing complexes here in Adams. One has had a clinic with Walgreens, one is coordinating a clinic with Elder Services, and one is coordinating an event with Berkshire Health Systems.
Right. And I think the other, because Berkshire Health Systems is basically our coordinator. And I think the REPC, the Northern Berkshire REPC was collecting information. Do you have, I mean, are the housing units going individually, or is someone other than yourself contacting them to set up their rosters? Because I think the rosters are what is needed in order.
So for those three, the clinics are actually happening at those complexes. Right. So this is in addition to or separate from what what's happening with North County.
Okay.
So that would take the burden off those mass sites.
Oh, good. Yes. Okay. So is it anything you see we need to do at this point?
No.
Thank you. And thank you for your efforts on that score, because from all I've been hearing, this has been a very complex, complicated problem, and especially with old people having to deal with it. It is, it's been challenging. And
right, but for early on, our Council of Aging stepped in, as did most of the Northern Berkshire Council of Aging, helping to register and helping to transport. So an appreciation goes out to them as well.
Yeah, Mark, I agree. I think Erica and the crew over there are doing a great job with getting the elderly in town, and the whole county, actually really getting people signed up and transporting them to the vaccination sites. I think they're doing a great job. They deserve some accolades there.
Sure do.
And then next agenda item, vaccine clinics. That's somewhat related. Is that basically dealt with what you've just been saying?
And with that, and then, with that it's happening throughout the county, that we have our site up in North Adams, and Central and Southern Berkshires have their sites. And I think that the vaccinations are moving along. Vaccination and the caregivers are moving along quite well.
Yes, right. Well, great. Well, thank you. The next agenda item is you had asked me about a textile recycling unit at at our transfer station. And have you heard anything back from, why am I blanking on his name? Our DPW chief.
Mr. Tober?
Yeah,
No, I have not. My understanding that this was going to make its way to the Board of Selectmen as well, but just to give the other two board members and the public a background, there's a company that will provide textile collection boxes at various transfer stations to reduce the amount of textiles going into landfills. And so Linda Cernick brought this to our attention and asked if we would be interested. Maybe if this board would like to take a vote as to whether or not we do have an interest, so we can forward this to the Board of Selectmen as an endorsement to place one of these textile collection boxes, and the textile being clothing and footwear at our transfer station. And then as it gets full, just like we do with any of the other bins, we make a phone call and the bin is then emptied by that establishment.
and monitoring, oversight. I always worry about people throwing anything into a box because you can't see it.
Well, that would be when they collect it. If it was something that was trash, it could be easily discarded right there rather than thrown on the side of the road.
Right, right. I mean, it's a great concept, and I know people have been thinking about the fabric textile recycling. So we can express positive interest here and ask for the Board of Selectmen to weigh in also, pending final decision. I mean, Pete,
Yeah, I don't know if we need a formal vote there, but I think it's a good idea. I don't see any real negatives with having that up there. There's no cost to us, and this company is going to basically take care of that. If there are potential issues, I would assume that Robert or some of the workers up there, Ray or something, might just let us know or the selectmen know and get it taken care of or go from there. But I don't really see any negatives. It's
Yeah, I agree. I certainly would endorse that.
well, we do have authority over the transfer station, and so I think it would be important for us to take a formal vote that
Okay.
particularly because we're basically asking the attendant to have additional oversight and so on and so forth. So may we have a vote to move forward, that we are in agreement with moving forward with a textile collection box at the Adams transfer station.
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion?
no,
Hearing none. Laura,
yes,
Pete,
Yes.
and Dave, yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mark. Take it to the select board and see where it goes. Last new order of business here, especially minerals. As I sent out the information that that DEP has completed its pre-review of the application for the quarry landfill. Everything is in order, and so the next step is basically public comment and further review. I think DEP will hire their own inspection crew to review the landfill proposal. And in the meantime, the proposal will be put out for public comment. And so there are two items that I will be asking for tonight. One is uh, to, permit, to say, we support SMI going forward with their proposal. And secondly, that we will put on our website the application that they have submitted to DEP, as well as the a brief synopsis of the landfill project itself. Once a certain, and they will be publishing an Eagle notice explaining in fuller detail and allowing public comment, and it does include our name and an email address, contact information. So Pam will probably get inquiries herself. And so may I ask for a motion to approve the public notice that SMI has provided us regarding their landfill proposal?
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion, questions?
no,
Laura, what say you?
yes,
Pete?
Yes.
Dave, yes, motion passes unanimously. I will let Sharon Burke know, and I will send and ask her for a copy of the application so that I can have Haley post that along with the brief. And watch the Eagle for the public notice. And then we will eventually have our own public hearing. And then I think we get the final vote at the end of this process. So thank you. Speaking of mail, question mark. Was it yesterday? I got an email saying a March 8th Board of Health call was canceled. And I looked at this list, and it included Mark, Laura, Pete, and it's funny. This is the second time I've gotten this call has been canceled, but I never get the invitation in the first place. Do either of you have any information on what this was scheduled for Monday, March 8th?
I don't know what it was about.
Okay.
I don't recall any email there.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Yes. I mean, it was just, it's just funny. I never get the invites. So maybe Mark, do you have any insight on that?
No, I don't.
Okay. So anyhow, it looked official.
Oh, yeah, I do see it, and I just deleted it because it didn't look legit to me.
Oh, okay. So, all right. Well,
So I just ignored it. Yeah.
Any other mail that came in that we should at least state for the record? No, hearing none. For the good of the order, with Attorney St. John's guidelines in mind, anything you wanted to say?
I have nothing.
No,
All right, well, thank you. Moving on, and next meeting, I have us, I think we already agreed on March 10th.
Yeah, that still works for me.
yep, that's fine.
And April. Why did I not write down what the dates are in April? It would be April, would it be April 7th? What's the,
I'm fine with either day.
Yeah, the question I think is whether we need to meet earlier for the for a hearing, because I do feel a sense of urgency there. But we can decide. Yeah, let's aim for April 7. And if we need to have another meeting later next month after dealing with the tobacco sales issues, then we can always postpone the April 7th later, depending on. So let's put in April 7th for now. Right. Anything else before I ask for an adjournment?
I have nothing.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Discussion. Laura,
yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Dave, yes, motion to adjourn. Unanimous, so we are now adjourning this meeting at 5:16 of the Adams Board of Health here, February 17th. February 7th, it is February 17th. And so see you all next month, if not before.
Thank you.
Thanks.